Hey guys, welcome to the Leadership to Wealth podcast. On today's show, we are talking about how we're all living busy lives, and many of us find that the first thing to suffer is passion, romance, and sex in our marriages. And so, our guest today, we talk about a couple of things. We talk about keeping an active sex life and making sure that you can communicate about your deepest sexual desires. Our guest today is an author, speaker, and marriage strategist, and he and his wife have created Denali LLC, where they really try to bring in passion for people and make it very transparent about how they can improve their marriages. On today's show, Oliver Marcelle. The word sex, the word sex really gets into a whole lot of different areas for people, and they're not sure exactly where to take it. Where do you get it? Where do you get information from? Do you get it from your friends? Do you get it from movies, TV, podcasts? And then of course there's that internal voice, especially for guys as it pertains to testosterone. There's a whole lot of other voices that come into it as well. So I didn't have an agenda for where this conversation was going to go or where we should start, but we sort of touched on it in our last interview, and that was just to talk about there's so much confusion around this topic, but some of the deepest questions that people will ask is, where does that relate to marriage, right? Like, hey, I can have sex now. What's the importance of? There's always that question of what's the importance of marriage if we're already living together, we're already having sex. So finding a correlation there. Do you see a correlation there between sex and marriage?
I do. Now, some of that obviously is going to be, what's the right word? Influenced. I'll use that word. Some of it is going to be influenced by my belief system. Some of it is actually influenced by just how our minds and bodies operate, right? And so I have couples that I have had as clients that they live together and they're not married. And the thing with that is, when you live together and you're not married, can your relationship work? Absolutely. Because there are certain components of a relationship that are necessary in order for a relationship to thrive. And if those components are necessary, your relationship is going to thrive, right? The difference, however, is that there is a covenant component, and I'm not going to get religious on folks, so don't get scared away. Don't get scared away. I am a man of faith. Now, I'm unashamed about that. But there is a covenant component to being married that takes your relationship to a different level. So when I'm living with someone, I have some options that aren't necessarily viable options in a covenant kind of relationship. So when I covenant with my wife that I'm going to be with you till death do us part, I'm essentially saying that I'm going to be with you for the rest of my life. In sickness and in health, we talk about all the ups and downs, the highs and lows, which we don't ever follow, by the way, because when the lows come, we're real quick to run, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. Hold on, let me do this real quick because we don't want our phone. Don't want the phone to die. Let me plug that in. So that's the difference, right? So you can live with somebody, you can live as a married person, you can have all the benefits of being married, but it mentally, even if you're unaware of it, even if you don't acknowledge it, mentally there is something that disconnects you from the reality that this is forever. You may not, and listen, people will fight me on that because they don't think that way. I didn't think that way. I can tell you that for right now. My wife and I lived together for a little while before we got married. But in hindsight, if I were to look back, it gave me the freedom to do certain things, even if I didn't take that liberty. Whereas in this covenant relationship that I'm in, the mindset that I have established in this relationship doesn't allow for those things. Now, does that work for everybody? No. It's not an exact science across the board, because there are people who are in covenanted relationships that are still, trying to build a back door to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it
Mm-hmm.
is not necessarily just about the covenant, but a lot of it is also about the person. And at some point you have to decide, hey, am I willing to make this level of commitment, or am I not willing to make this level of commitment? And then
Yeah.
you gotta deal with whatever aligns with that, whatever the consequences. And I'm using that word for shock value, but whatever the things are that, whatever
Yeah.
comes with your decision, you have to be prepared to live with that.
Okay, wait, let's step back for 1 second
Mhm.
from that. Let's step back and go and look at it slightly differently. What would you say is the number one problem that people have when they talk about sex, or that you encounter when you're talking with people when it comes to sex? What's the number one
Hmm.
problem that you hear and deal with?
I'd say probably the number one issue that we see as it relates to sex is something that's categorized as desire discrepancy.
Ooh, desire discrepancy.
Yeah,
Tell me.
so that's not a term I coined. I give credit to a sex therapist that's a great friend of mine in Virginia,
Yeah.
who coined that term, because it's something my wife and I experienced as well. And that's
Are
why
we talking? Are we talking about, like, my wife takes off her shirt, I get really excited. I take off my shirt, and she's like, nah.
no,
There's a
but that
discrepancy.
no, but that is a discrepancy that we see.
Okay. Okay.
What I'm talking about is where there's one spouse who just wants it way more than the other. So you have one
Okay.
spouse who is like, man, we need to have sex every day of the week. And you have
Yeah.
the other spouse who's like, I'm good with once a week. And then so
Right.
we see some issues that arise out of that,
Right.
because
Right.
the high drive spouse sometimes does not have the capacity, or hasn't developed the capacity to be compassionate enough to either meet them halfway, or to even understand why their their spouse is the low drive spouse.
Right.
They just get resentful. Oh, my needs are not being met. Oh, they don't care about me. They're not paying any attention to me. And that causes a level of conflict that broadens the desire discrepancy. Because once you start fighting, now you're really like, oh, well, once a week. Okay, how about once a month, Jack? Because I don't
Mhm.
even like you right now, because we're fighting over that. And so that's one of the main things that we see as it relates to sex in the
Yeah.
relationship, is getting over that, and now trying to figure out, okay, how do I meet this person's needs as a low drive
Yeah.
spouse? What
Yeah.
even is the reason why they're the low drive spouse? Like, even figuring that out.
So number one, I mean, what you're saying, you're right. I've heard that one
Mm,
a bunch of times, and typically what we see when you're talking about the difference between high drive and low drive,
mhm.
typically you're gonna see it's gonna be the dude. It's gonna be the guy that usually has this high drive. I mean, reality being reality, testosterone usually is gonna kick in.
Mhm.
For women that are listening, and you don't get it, it's like shoving electricity through a guy's veins,
Yeah.
and through his brain, and but instead of it hurting, it completely pushes us in the direction
Right.
of sex. So
It's the drive.
typically that
Typically,
drive, yeah,
here, you know what's funny?
is men.
You know what's funny,
Yeah.
Neil? I'm starting to see more and more it being flipped,
Okay.
which is very
Okay.
interesting to me, because it
Yes.
for a very long time, and I don't know if it's just that women are now becoming more vocal about it, or if it's actually flipping, right? Because for a long time, when it comes to desire discrepancy, you could probably bank on the fact that it was the guy who wanted sex more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm beginning to see a lot more women who are like, man, this guy's not paying attention to me, man. I'm trying to jump his bones every day, and he's like, playing video games or reading the paper. Like, what is going on right now?
On behalf of the rest of us, definitely on behalf of myself, we just want all the guys that are in that type of situation where your wife always wants to jump your bones. We just want to let you know that we hate you. So
Yeah,
All right.
just understand that that's a blessing, right? Just take the blessing. Like, you might have to eat that. Like, just take the blessing.
No, no pun intended,
No
or
pun
maybe a
intended,
pun
right?
intended. But we might go a little offside on today's show.
Right.
We
Right.
are
Buckle up.
talking about sex, so if you've got questions, TikTok, guys, please chime in. Let us
Absolutely.
know what your questions might be. We'd love them.
Yeah, but
And
buckle up for the conversation.
that's right. Buckle up. It's not going to be PG here. So, okay. So, granted, typically you've got men that are going to be the high drive. Women are typically low drive, but you're seeing that flip. And I've got an assumption on that, strictly assumption. I got no science behind it, but my assumption is that we've seen shift culturally, and I think that cultural shift is what we're seeing play out, and that is that more and more women are now looking to connect, because we know by and large women are looking for connection through relationally, and guys are looking for connection physically and sexually. And so I think a lot more what I'm seeing, this is strictly an assumption, is that that's switching, and women are seeing it. Hey, I can get that connection relationally this way.
Right.
And any thoughts on that? That's what it's looking like, but I'm not on the ground level there, so I can't speak to that.
So I'll tell you, just from my experience with the couples that we work with, I believe that there's more talk about it now. So if you think about our generation, or at least I'll speak for myself, I don't remember ever having a conversation about sex with my father, ever. My wife is the same. I can probably vouch for her that she doesn't remember having a conversation with her mother about sex. So I believe that because the conversation is now becoming more accepted, and the conversation is now, there's still a taboo element to it, but I think because that taboo element is now beginning to shift a little bit, people are more willing to speak up. Because you had couples who would be going through some kind of scenario, but because they didn't feel like they could talk about it, they just suppressed it. Now I feel like people are not suppressing it anymore. And folks are like, wait a minute, I do have these desires, and I do want to see them fulfilled, and I do see the importance of it, and I understand now the benefit that it has on to our relationship. So bring it on. So I'm seeing a little bit more of that as it relates to the conversation just coming to the forefront around sex.
Well, I think there's also something valid to say about, our generation, that time. There's this entire topic would have been censored. I mean,
absolutely.
like, who's kidding who?
We wouldn't be able to have it.
Even if you wanted to have a podcast about it, I think I only ever heard one person talk about it on the radio, and that was Dr. Ruth. That old lady, right? And Dr. Ruth, and everyone like, oh my goodness, that was Dr. Ruth was going to talk to you about. It was, and it was crazy. You couldn't believe that someone was going to talk about sex on the radio. So we fast forward. Here we are. People are talking about it more than ever. There's a problem between one partner has a high drive, the other has a lower drive, not necessarily a low drive, just lower to the person that's high, and that has that high drive, and they're trying to work through that dynamic. And what you're saying is it has a lot to do with compassion, grace, mercy, something like that in between the two, understanding that one is in one place and the other is there.
Most people aren't having the conversation. Right. And that's what I'm realizing. Most people aren't even having the conversation. So we get a couple in front of us, and they're going through a period of time where they're having conflict around desire discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
The first question I'll always ask them is, Have you talked about it?
Yeah.
Well, nah, not really. I just let him do his thing, or I just give in, or I just ignore him, or I
Okay,
ignore
okay,
her.
wait. Hey,
Case.
hang on there, Oliver.
Yeah.
How does that conversation come up, first of all?
How does what conversation come up? About
So
sex?
yeah, so does he just come right out and go, you know, I want more sex, or does it come off of something else?
Well, typically, here's how to come about.
Okay.
One of them will talk about, they'll use different words. They won't say sex in the beginning.
Yeah.
So the wife may say, "Man, I need more affection, or I need more intimacy. Our
Right.
intimacy is lacking," or something like that, right? And
Yeah.
that can be very broad, right? That could
Yeah.
be anything from spiritual, experiential intimacy all the way to sexual intimacy. But they don't
Yes.
put a label on it. So what
Yeah.
I end up doing is I start doing some digging.
Right.
I start asking some probing questions,
Yeah.
and eventually that's what brings it out. And so once it comes out, then typically the guy is like, well, yeah, it's not really, happening. They still won't say. They kind of,
Right.
tiptoe around it. Well, it's
He's
not
like,
really
I took you
right.
to dinner the other night. I
Right.
brought you some flowers.
And
And
it's
then
not
what
really
happened?
happening. Right. It's not really
Yeah.
happening the way that I want it to happen. And so I
Yeah.
always ask them the question, have you talked about it?
Yeah.
I can tell you definitively 9.5 times out of 10, the answer is no.
Mm.
And
But
because
Oliver, I told her I wanted, after dinner, I told her that I was,
yep. And that happens. That happens. They're
mm,
like, well, I did this, I did this, I did that. But what comes out of that conversation is, are those things that you did, are those actually the things that your spouse, are they important emotional needs for your spouse? Or are you
mm,
doing things that you feel like are the right things to do, that
yeah.
would give you the ROI that you're looking for? And often they're like, well, yeah, I did this, I did that, I did that. And then the spouse is like, yeah, but I had somebody tell me the other day, they were like, yeah, but I just wanted you to hold me.
Mm.
Okay, well, did you say that?
Did you say it
Well,
right?
no, I didn't say that. I just assumed, you should already know that. No, hold on. You don't do that at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't understand something, or if you're not sure about something, you don't just wing it. Well, maybe you do, but you don't last in that job too long, right?
Yeah.
So it's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same thing with sex. You got to have those conversations. Hey, what do you like? What are the things that turn you on? What are the things that turn you off? What are the things? What love language do I need to speak that gets you in that place?
Yeah.
What are the things and I'm specific. I'm
Yeah.
specific. I had a couple last week where I was like, listen, she said, I need more affection and I need more
Yeah.
romance.
Yeah.
For me, those are two umbrella words. Like, that could mean
Yeah.
anything. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I had them in the session break that down. I'm quick to ask people, what does that look?
What does affection mean? What
What does it
does
look like?
romance look like to you?
Exactly. And so I
Yeah.
I kept pushing and pushing, and they started coming up with stuff. Well, I want you to tell me that I look sexy. I want you to, when you see me in the kitchen, I want you to slap me on the butt. I want you, and I'm like, okay, give me some tangible stuff,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
now and now the spouse has some tangible stuff that they can now begin to do.
Yeah.
And as you begin to do those things, as you begin to say those things, you get the desired result,
Yeah.
because it's cause and effect. If I know that my wife is turned on by me rubbing her back, why would I not do that?
Right.
Because now I
Right.
get the desired result, right? And so now you skip the guesswork, you
Yeah.
skip the trial and error. Well, I tried something and you ain't respond, so da 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 da. Forget about it. Now you skip all that, because
Yeah.
because you had the conversation.
Okay, so I want to just point out for the high drive partners that are listening right now, you're listening. This is some gold that we're dropping that Oliver is sharing with you right now. And I'm sorry, but we're going to be talking to most of the dudes out here because most of you
That's
guys are going to
typical.
miss this
Yeah.
part. Listen up for those of you with high drive. And so, what I just heard you talk about, Oliver, was hey, you ask the question. Don't don't buy into that romance is somehow some mystery out there and you're supposed to wander through the dark,
Yep.
ask the question. And now we know that how we ask the question usually is part of the issue.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
But guys, high drive partners, do not turn off the moment you hear the one solution, because I know that Oliver just talked about rubbing the back or, flowers or something like that. And I know for a fact that that is not what romance looks like to a whole number of women, specifically the one I'm married to. So, okay. So talk to us a little bit more about how do you even have that conversation? Because as a dude, that is so awkward.
It is.
You're right. Like, cause somehow I'm supposed to be the one that knows. I'm supposed to be the Mr. Loverman. I'm supposed to be the romantic and be able to figure all of that out. Well, if he really loved me, he would know. If he really knew me, right? So
I hear that so often.
How do you have that conversation and keep your dignity intact?
So for different people, it's going to work different ways, right? You have to know your mate, and you have to know. Hopefully, you're working on learning your mate, so you understand timing and you understand tone and you understand the temperature of the room or the day, so that you know when to bring up certain things and when not to bring up certain things. I've seen a whole spectrum of things. I've seen people who are able to have that conversation very easily in the afterglow moment. So after sex has just happened, they're able to actually have a conversation that says, hey man, I really enjoyed that, man. That was great, man. You are outstanding. You need to keep doing that, what you did just now. And sometimes that's how the conversation comes about. And you learn some things, right? You need to keep doing that. Or you know what? We tried this and it didn't really work that well. It kind of hurt a little bit. Maybe try this next time or something like that. So some people have it in the afterglow conversation and that works for them. Some people, they can just bring it up in conversation. I'll give you an example. Like for with us, myself and my wife, how that conversation often happens is like we're watching a TV show or watching a movie, and some guy will do something, and I'll turn to her jokingly and be like, "Oh, so that's what you want?" And so for us, that's how it comes out of humor for us, right?
Right.
So you have to know, you got to know your mate, and you got to know like what is the thing that, what is the time that you can bring that up? What is the comfort level? Is it over dinner and a glass of wine where you're already feeling, kind of good about the moment, and then you can talk about that? Can you use examples? Can you use humor like we do? And so you kind of have to. It's some trial and error involved, right? Especially for those who are not used to talking about sex, those who are not used to having that conversation about likes and dislikes and that kind of stuff. It's going to be some trial and error. And it may start with this simple question. What do you need from me? And then let the person, even if they can't respond right then, let them think about it. What do you need from me in the bedroom or outside of the bedroom? Because sometimes it's not just about sex. Sometimes it's about, what do you need from me? And the person is like, man, I just need you to help me out with the kids. And that'll give me some time, free me up some time to shower and feel nice and smell good and feel good about it. And I'll be ready to go. So sometimes it's not even that, right? So you just got to be willing to do some trial and error. And you just got to be willing to ask that question. What do you need from me?
Yeah. Well, I for myself, I can say that finding the right time is the worst thing to to try to do.
It is.
But
it's difficult. I won't lie. It's difficult.
Yeah. But then there's also something about, okay, just being able to, now we're talking in the context of an actual relationship, right? You've got some type of relationship and you care to know these answers.
That's
if you don't care, well, I don't know what to tell you. You can scroll on, but
if you don't care to know, don't care to know the answers, it's going to be very evident in your sexual experience.
Yeah. But we're talking from a standpoint, you care, you want to make a difference, you want to see something transform inside your relationship.
Yep.
okay, if that's what you want, then here's the opportunity.
Yeah.
Hey, hun, can I ask you a weird question? Or, I want to ask you something. I don't know exactly how to bring it up.
Yep.
And sure, I'm trying to, I saw this podcast or I read this book. I don't care, whatever, right?
Right.
Hey,
Right.
I'm just trying to understand a little bit more. What does romance mean to you? Like when you think about it, hey, or what is sex? I don't want to assume. I know we've been doing this stuff,
Yep.
but I don't want to assume. And you won't hurt my feelings. Can you say something about this? What you think, and then let them answer.
You did something key just now. You did something key just now because so let's say, for example, the couple is not used to talking about sex because there are
Yeah.
some couples that are very free. They're very able to talk about
Yeah.
it. No problem. Let's
Yeah.
say it's a couple that's not used to talking about sex, right? You don't want to just jump in and be like, hey, how do you like, how was that? Describe
Yeah.
how we do this and what's the position you like and that kind of
Do
thing.
you like
Right?
that?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you did something key. You started with something I call a soft start.
Yeah.
You said, what does romance mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
That's a soft start because that's
Yeah.
something for the person who's not used to talking about sex. They can talk about that. What does romance mean? Okay, romance is, when you curl up, on the couch with me or when you do, right? So you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
start there and then
And
move
start
your way.
making mental notes as they're talking.
Exactly.
Write
And
it
then
down.
move your way. Or it could be
Yeah.
something like this. Here's another soft start. Man, you know what? That dress you wore the other day or that suit you had on the other day, that was doing something for me.
Yeah.
I need you to keep dressing like that. Or like I give you a great example. My wife had on a pair of leggings the other day. I was like, babe, I'm gonna need you to get those in every color. Like immediately. you know, you know what I mean? And that's a soft start, right? Because now what you're doing in a sense is expressing what is visually appealing to you. So without me saying, hey, you know what, you're super sexy in that, and man, I get so horny when I see you in those things. I didn't have to say all that. I was just like, hey, babe, I'm gonna need you to get those in every color because I like what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
Right. So now she knows, oh, okay. I want to get this guy's blood boiling a little bit. Let me go on and get some of these. Right. And so you can start there for the person who isn't really used to talking about sex. And then as you with anything, as you get more comfortable, you add more, right? So you can get comfortable all the way up to the point where you're like, hey, you know what? You can have that afterglow conversation. Hey, did you like when I did this, or did you like when I said this, or that kind of thing. You can have that conversation because you started with those soft starts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you're bringing up for me is realizing that those can change.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, because
They
I've
will
been,
change.
yeah, almost guaranteed. If not guaranteed,
Guaranteed.
almost guaranteed. Okay,
They
Oliver said it
will
right
change.
here. You heard it. It will change,
It will.
and I can tell you for a fact that I remember when I first found out the secret to be able to flip that switch and get her going.
Mm-hmm.
I found out that the way there was if I had the kitchen swept, counters clean, dishes, everything was good to go, and she'd come home, she was ready to go that night, like clockwork. Right, we were good. And so when I found that out, I thought I found the cheat code. I was like, oh my goodness. And then, guys, listen to this, because if this has ever happened to you, and then it didn't work. Something happened, and I was like,
Wow.
"What is going on?"
Wow.
And I couldn't figure it out. And then one day, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go all the way out." She comes home, and here you spend some time with the kids, and no, I got everything ready. I had supper, everything was ready to go, and the kitchen was clean. And she's, can I help you? I was like, no, you stay with the kids, and we're going like this. And then she starts getting upset with me. And I'm like, what is going on? And I lost it. And I was like, Do you know that any other woman would love it if their husband was?
Oh boy.
And I stopped right there and I went, any other woman? Okay, hang on a second. And she was like, what? I was like, no, hang on a second. I literally, hang on. And I was like, oh, but hang on. I've got a different one. And I stopped and I was like, oh, hang on a second. My wife loves doing dishes.
Mm.
And I've been doing this in a row. And this is going to sound crazy. And you can say something to this, please. She actually then said, oh, I then realized she's feeling like there's something that she's not doing, that she's feeling guilty.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's some motherly instinct in there about being a house, a housekeeper, maker, whatever that term is. There was something in there. And we ended up having the conversation later on. And she initially said no. About 2 days later, she came back and said yes, that was in fact the case. But can you say something about that, about the lock changing?
Yeah, it does, because here, and there's a lot of factors, right? And that's why what you did is so important. When you had the conversation, you were able to learn some things about each other, right? Because your motives were fantastic, right? But because of what she was thinking and what she attaches to her role and the importance of her role, because that was attached to that, and you were taking a piece of that away from her, now in her mind, that's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And once you're disconnected mentally, it's tough to connect physically if you're disconnected mentally. That only happens in college. Like, folks, like after you get out of your 20s, there's not a whole lot of just having sex for the sake of having sex. You don't have no feelings. You don't have no, I'm just trying to blow off steam kind of thing. Like, after a while, especially in a committed relationship, there is some very significant pathways between how you feel mentally around intimacy and around your role and around acknowledgement and validation, and what happens in the bedroom. There's significant like mashup there, right?
Yeah.
So it changed. So that's one way. The other way is just simply through age. Like, as you get older, just your wants and desires around sex can change just because you're getting older. And not older like it's like a bad thing, but just there's just something else you want to explore, something else that you are looking for, or something else that happened one time, 3 months ago, and you're like, wait a minute, I think I need that to happen more often. Like, I never knew I was even into that, and so there's so many factors that can change what your desires are in the bedroom. And that's why conversation is so important. That's why conversation is so important. Like, you'll have there's a couple, I'll give you an example. There's a couple who they never talked dirty, so to speak. And I'm not talking about like just vile nonsense, but they never had like this, oh, do you like that? Okay, talk, whatever, like in the midst of intercourse, right? It happened one day, and the wife was like, wait a minute. That took me to the moon. Like, you gotta start saying that more often, and never knew. Like, it had been years and that hadn't taken place, right? So there's so many factors that change how you view sex and what your desires are around sex. There's certain things that you may have loved to do, in your 30s, that you're like, man, that's not physically possible for me anymore. Like, you can't bend me over backwards anymore. Like, my back hurts. So we need to try different positions, and you need to know those kinds of things. Right. And I mean, I'm being funny, but I'm being for real. Like, that's a real thing. You know what I mean? So, and so having that conversation is so important to you understanding your spouse in a way that allows you to meet their needs. And as you meet their needs, especially the most important emotional needs, right? It's said that when you meet your spouse's most important emotional needs, or anybody, the person whose needs are being met, they tend to fall in love with the person meeting those needs. So I'm not talking about just like, I need you to cook me dinner and I need you to fold laundry, not that kind of stuff. I'm talking about those needs that speak to deep to the psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physical inner being. When you meet those needs, like like, first, I'll give you an example. There's some people that have a very deep need for acknowledgement and validation. They want to be seen. And when you see them, they just thrive. They open up. You see a whole different side of them when they feel seen and heard and acknowledged and validated. So you meet that need, you understand that that's a need for your spouse, and you meet that need, you will reap the benefits of that every time. Every time.
Just a random thought that popped up in my head. Why do some people like to have sex in the same position all the time, or always have the light out, or this kind of stuff? They like to have, the same routine.
I would say two reasons that I've seen. One is that they just don't know any better. For some reason, that's what they were taught, is how this activity is supposed to play out. So every time you have sex, you're supposed to turn the lights off, or every time you have sex, somebody's supposed to get undressed in the bathroom first and then come and lay under the covers, and then you turn the lights out. Like, some people have just been conditioned that way based on what they've taught or what their ideology is around sex. For some people, it's insecurities. And you'll never know because you never had the conversation. Some people, you would never know they have some body, issues. They have some issues around how they feel like they look. They don't feel like they look sexy, right? So going back to the need for validation, right? They don't feel like they look sexy, and in the back of their mind, they're like, man, I just want to feel sexy. I want to know that I'm sexy to this person. But that conversation never comes up. And so they internalize that insecurity, and it plays out in a physical sense with them wanting the light out, or with them wanting to keep their shirt on, or wanting to keep, some article of clothing on, or something like that, or be wrapped up with the covers over them, or whatever it is that they do. And so those are the two ends of the spectrum that I often see, right? Insecurity on one end, and just lack of knowledge on the other end, that, hey, listen, this is an exploratory activity, and you're good. Like, you can have a great time, whatever that great time looks like for you, right? And so I've gotten couples to get I partnered with this guy one time, and he has this these set of, like, these deck of cards. And so, like, one deck of cards in particular, I think I have one. I thought I had it down here, but I don't. But there's a deck of cards, right? And so you pull a card out of the deck, and it could be any number of things. It could be something that you have to say to your spouse, or it could be something that you have to do to your spouse, or do for your spouse, right?
Well, I hope that deck is in the bedroom.
It was down here, because I used to show it on camera, because it was. I have But and so it goes from PG, if you will, all the way to triple X. So there's stuff. There's foreplay cards. There's different. So you got to find ways now to introduce you and your spouse to that level of creativity and that level of freedom that you're supposed to enjoy as it relates to the sexual experience. But you can't start there. Here's my one piece of advice. If you've never talked about sex, you don't know what the insecurities are. You don't know what the desires are. You don't know what, you haven't had any conversation around sex. I would not suggest getting that deck of cards first. I'd suggest getting the deck of cards that starts with asking questions, because there's another deck of cards that he has that's literally just questions like the one you asked. What does romance look like to you? Yeah. So start with the foundation, because here's what I tell people all the time. Sex and sexual activity is like the roof of the house. I am not a contractor, so I can't speak to this with an intelligent way, but I have never seen a house built from the roof down.
Right.
I've always seen a house built from the foundation up. So you got to start there. What are your spouse's most important emotional needs? What are the things that makes them tick? What are the things that make them feel loved? What are the things that makes him feel respected? What are the things that make them feel validated and seen and heard? What's the warm, fuzzy stuff? What's the stuff that you just love? Like, I love when my wife just rubs the back of my head. I just love that. And it's not going to always lead to sex, but I love how that feels and what that does for me, right?
I do too, just not this head.
There you go. Right. There you go. See? And that's what I'm saying. We gotta know those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to know those things. So if you want to have a great sexual experience, you have to learn your spouse.
Yeah.
You have to.
So okay, so what I'm hearing is, first of all, one of the biggest problem that we see relationally when it comes to this thing of sex is one partner has a high drive, one partner has a lower drive than that person, and that discrepancy creates that friction. It creates that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I tend to see. That's what I see the most. Now, if you ask another person, they may tell you something different. But in the clients that I have that are grappling with growing their sexual intimacy, I'd say 8, 9 times out of 10, somebody wants it more than the other, and has developed some level of resentment because they don't feel like their needs are being fulfilled in the bedroom.
So number one, if that's what you're seeing, you're in a relationship and that's what you're seeing. Hey, I want it more than she does, or I want him to do this to me more than he wants to. Then there's your number one. That's probably the biggest problem that we're seeing. But then the solution to that is that you're articulating here is conversation, communication, detailed, genuine, like having that communication around, whether it be before, during, or after having sex.
Yep, that's it.
So now the question I have from that is, what does success look like? What does it look like if we're doing those things? What does it look like? How do I know that, okay, I've done this right? I did a good job.
That's
How do I know that?
So, and here this is a convoluted answer in a way. Success looks like satisfaction, which is going to be different for everybody. But success looks like satisfaction. If you are dissatisfied in your sexual life, then there's more digging that needs to take place. Because the sexual experience and what happens in the sexual experience is directly connected to the rest of your relational experience. So often when we're having issues in the bedroom, we attack the issues in the bedroom, but those are just an outward display of some level of inward issue problem. So I'm not enjoying sex. I'm not being satisfied in the bedroom. The problem is not I'm not being satisfied in the bedroom. The problem is that something's going on with me and my wife, or something is not happening that should be happening, or there's a need that I feel like should be met, or they're not speaking my love language, or they just don't care to know. And so because of that, I'm just being, standoffish or whatever it is. It always points to something else. So when you deal with those things, you see your satisfaction level grow. I'll give you here's an example. So there's a assessment that we have all our couples do during the intake process. The very last part of that assessment talks about harmony, and it lists about 25 different things, everything from how you feel about your in-laws to your sexual fulfillment, and it rates their harmony level in those areas.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you that if there are wide gaps in harmony around some of the very key essential things like conflict resolution, communication, money, and those kinds of really big issues, if there's a high discrepancy in harmony there is a high level of disharmony, if that's a word, in the bedroom. I can
Yeah.
promise you that.
Is
So
is this test available if people are listening and they're like, "Hey, I want to take this test. I want to do this
absolutely,
with my sweat." Is there
absolutely.
somewhere
They
they can go and get this?
Yep, just the link. I'll give you a link
Okay.
that you can
Great.
put in the description, and then for those of you that are on TikTok, if you go to link in my bio and scroll down to coaching, you can see that as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not something we put together, but part of one of our certifications is through a company that Dr. Les and Leslie Parrott put together.
Hmm.
And so there's an assessment that they have created that was part of our certification process that we love, and we use that more than any other assessment because it's comprehensive, but
Yeah.
yet it's easy to use. Like, we've used some assessments and they're comprehensive, but man, you got to be PhD level to understand the results. You know what I mean? And we don't
Right.
want to put our
Right.
clients through that because it gets
Right.
tedious, right? This
Right.
is colorful, it's comprehensive, you can see the results, you can have a conversation around it, and it's called Better Love. So for those who are listening, you can go right now to betterlove.com, all one word, betterlove.com, and you could take the assessment.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have us
But-
as coaches. You can take the assessment on your own and you can go through the results on your own. Like, if you want somebody now to help you craft some strategy, then you can reach out to us to, for that assistance.
Yeah, guys, don't bother going there. Make sure you go to Oliver's. Wait, is it on your website as well?
Yep, it's on our website as well.
And what's your website?
Our website is Denoli, DENOLI.org.
Guys, go to denali.org and do it there because there's other resources there as well.
Yeah.
And if you want more connection with Oliver, you're gonna be able to do that. And you want to be able to. We want to be able to further this conversation rather than just send it elsewhere where you get a little bit of information, but then you don't get any further resources. So I
Yeah.
want to make sure that they're going over to you to check that out.
I appreciate that. Because you can take the assessment on your own, but that's all you'll
Yeah.
get. You'll get the
Yeah.
results. And a lot of couples, once they get the results, they're like, man, so all right, I see what my personality is. I see what we think about sex. I see how we resolve conflict or lack of. I see these areas where we don't have harmony. Now what do we do?
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of having a coach is, now we can come in and say, hey, let's craft some strategy around these areas, and we can
Yeah.
help you get through it.
So, if one partner's got a high drive, the other's got a lower drive,
Mhm.
it's all around communication, being able to figure out, not figure out, being able to ask the questions and have the other person articulate. And something I'd like to say about that is that chances are, especially for the guys, I want to say this,
Mhm.
chances are the first thing that your partner says to you is probably not the full answer. You probably need to ask them some more questions.
You need to do some
Um,
digging.
you need to do some digging.
You need to do some digging.
You
And let me
you
say
know,
this too,
yeah, go for
just
it.
to be fair, let me say this too. Sometimes it's more than just the meeting of the needs. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's more than just having the conversation. There are couples where there's actually some physical stuff happening, right? There's some hormonal imbalances. There's some
right.
things that actually bring the drive down. I'll give you a great example, right? We're older now. So my wife is going through perimenopause.
Mm,
As you go through perimenopause, the body changes in a way that actually decreases the libido. So unless I'm actually willing to learn about that, I'm looking at her like, what's the problem? Why you ain't jumping off the, from the roof, like you used to, like, and now I'm not being sensitive to what's happening with her, right?
yeah,
And that insensitivity now leads to conflict. So now we're right back where we were, in conflict. So sometimes it's that. So the whole conversation helps you to learn your spouse, which is what needs to happen. You got to know who you have partnered with and who you've
yeah,
committed to be with for the rest of your life, and it will change over time.
yeah. Well, and that's actually a great point because especially when you get started, as you said,
Hmm.
eh, there may be no need for any of this stuff.
Nope.
You guys, you close the door and everything's boom. Let's go.
Yeah.
Clothes go flying. Everything's, hot and heavy. The
Yep.
table, the counter, whatever. It
I'm
might
telling you.
be whatever that kind of stuff is,
Yeah,
right?
you go through a period of life where all you got to do is just shoot a look at somebody. You had a
And off it
party.
goes.
You had a party. You
Yeah.
shoot a look like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
We out of here. It's time to go.
And we have to realize that life is life. We're going to grow. We're going to change. You're building a business. You're having kids. You're doing all this kind of stuff. And so as that happens, there are so many different influences and forces that are pushing each of you, not both of you, each of you in different directions. And it's important to point that out, because the direction in which something is pushing you might be different than the direction it's pushing your spouse, right? Or your partner. And so it's putting you in different directions. So it's the importance of having those conversations. And so when are you going to need it? When you start to notice that there's something there. I mean, ideally you have the conversation before you ever need it, but when you start to notice, hey, something's just off, now that's your trigger. That's
your trigger.
For those of you guys, that needs to be the trigger to start having these conversations, start increasing that communication, if you haven't already. And so now, and if you're doing that and the sex is getting better and it's getting to be something that you both enjoy, and you're feeling satisfied in that area, then hey, this is going in the right direction. Now, I want to ask just something a little bit more about that, because I think there's also a discrepancy that sometimes we find that men will look and they'll feel the satisfaction. Hey, I feel good. I think everything's going good. Meanwhile, they have no idea that underneath that there's their partner. Forget about guys. One partner feels this great satisfaction, and then the other partner is not feeling that satisfaction, and now they're like, I don't know if I can bring this back up.
Yep, I've had a couple in that scenario as well. And here's the thing: I would challenge both parties. The party who is satisfied, I would challenge you, and it's a question I always ask, and I said it already in this interview. What do you need from me? Because I could feel like I'm knocking it out the park. And sometimes to take the awkwardness out of the conversation, I have couples use a technique that, this is not the technical term for it, but I call it the ice cream sandwich method, where you start out with the two wafers of the ice cream sandwich are celebration. The ice cream in the middle is the need. So you start off with celebration. Babe, you know what? Man, I love when we connected the other night. That was so good. I love the way you talk to me, the way you just celebrate it, right? Then you slip in the need or the question, like, man, I would love if you would keep doing that, because, and then you go back into celebration. Real quick need, right? Because then that opens the door to be like, oh, you love that? Okay, what did you love about that? And now you can have a conversation. Or you can ask a question in that middle section, like, man, I love everything that we did. It was so great, last night or this morning or whatever it is. Man, what else do you think would, what else would you want to see that would even create more fireworks? Because I love it when you feel so great and when you feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Right. So now,
yeah, well, hun, I'd love if you washed your penis next time, so before I had to give you a blowjob.
Yeah, like and well, yeah, that's a whole nother topic, right? The hygiene thing is like that. You would think that's a given, right? But it's not for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yes, if you're listening, like, yes, hygiene is a key component in a great sexual experience.
Yeah. I mean, it could be
You said something earlier too. You said something earlier. You were talking about building a business, and I thought about it. I was like, it's the same. You think about building a business, right? As you're building a business, in the beginning, there's certain things, certain needs that are there, certain things that have to be addressed, certain challenges that you may face. in year 1 that you may not face in year 5, that you may not face in year 10. However, what you face in year 5 and year 10 is going to, you may have challenges, but they're different. You can't address the challenges in year 5 with the same methodology, the same financial structure, the same team that maybe you did in year 1. Nobody does that. Everybody has conversations. Hey, we have a 5-year plan. Let's revisit that plan. Or we need to restructure, or we need to rebrand, or whatever the thing is, right?
Yeah.
Why is it that we don't do that? We feel like we don't need to do that in our relationships.
Yeah.
Like sex in year 1 of your marriage is not going to be the same as sex in year 21.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to have some conversation. There may be some restructuring. There may be some rebranding. There may be, there may be like that, there may be some things that need to happen. And so I tell couples this often: listen, you can't just be winging it. You don't wing it in any other area of your life. Why would you wing it in something that you claim is the most important thing to you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. There's even with as much conversation that happens on social media, in society, it still becomes a very personal thing, a very where ego and insecurities are there, and so people have a tendency to want to stay away from that conversation about sex, not realizing that that is connected to emotional security, is connected to so many other things, and as a result, you walk around feeling unfulfilled in your relationship. Clearly this person isn't attracted to, and we start creating all of these stories going on inside of our head, and then we just start with confirmation bias. We start looking for all the things that prove whatever stuff is going on in your head. So if you're listening right now and you got these ideas going on in your head and you've never had the conversation with your significant other, with your partner, you just got to realize it's stories inside your head, and you really got to be able to bring it out there so that you can, because for all the young marrieds, I want to do, or young marrieds, young partners, what I want to put out there is that if you're doing it right, believe it or not, it can get better than whatever you're doing. Like
without a doubt.
10 times better than
without
what.
A doubt.
Yeah. Right.
I'm a living witness of that. I'm telling you. I'm a living witness, because we had a significant conversation some years ago.
Yeah.
And everything changed after that. And up until that point, I don't feel like there were any issues in the bedroom. We just hadn't really taken the time to be intentional about learning each other in that way. Because you have to learn each other in that way, right?
Yeah.
Just as you learn how to communicate, you learn how to be a team, you learn all of these different things. You got to learn your mate sexually, because it's just key to you understanding who they are, and then being able to now address in a significant and successful way, address those things that you've learned. And you, like I said before, you reap the benefits every time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I think that, especially this is the Leadership to Wealth podcast, and we talk about finances, we talk about fitness, we talk about family, we talk about these things. And if we're talking about wealth, you really want each of these components, right, to be built up. And so, guys, if you want to, for those of you listening, you don't just want to have money. You don't want to just have money and just have your health. You want that trifecta, and you're going to have to pay attention. I think you said it earlier, Oliver, about if you want the ROI, the return on investment, then you've got to do your due diligence. You've got to get in there and put in that investment. And realize that it is sexy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a whole nother aspect that I think that people don't realize that your relationship can grow into,
Yeah.
and until unfortunately they get onto rocky ground or something like that, they wait too long to get into those conversations and
Yep.
to figure that part out.
You're right. And I'll leave you. I'll leave you with a good formula, right? For those
Yeah,
of you who are
come
listening,
on,
right?
give it to us.
To have this conversation, here's what you have to do, because here's where a lot of us mess up.
Yeah.
We express our need, and
Yes.
that's where it ends.
Right.
So depending on your tone, depending on the timing, depending on the temperature of the room, when that need is expressed, it feels like you're barking an order, or it feels like you're actually being in a very condescending way, expressing some level of dissatisfaction.
Mhm.
Here's what you got to do in that conversation. You express your need. You express why the need is important.
Yeah.
You express how the need benefits the team, not how it benefits you, how it benefits the team. Because if it's how it benefits you, now we're thinking selfishly. Oh, well, you just want me to do such and such and such so you can get your rocks off. No, 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 no. This is how it benefits the team. I feel closer to you. I feel more connected to you. I look at you, whatever it is that you say, right? So express the need. Why is the need important? How does the need benefit the team? And then the very last thing is how the other person can facilitate the need.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Give them that.
Yep.
That's awesome. So, Oliver, how do people get a hold of you? What's the best places to find you, be in contact with you, and learn more
Um,
from you?
well, best place to find me is on the website, which is denolillc.org. Um, I live everywhere though. So TikTok, nice, great community on TikTok, trying to build our YouTube community. So come on and hang out with us on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
All of our social media is Denali LLC. So if you look up Denali LLC, you'll probably find us everywhere. So pick your platform of choice and come hang out with us. This is the kind of stuff I talk about all the time. For the
Yeah.
TikTok community, I throw up a
You
one
know it.
minute clip. Yeah, one
Yeah.
minute clip almost every day,
Yeah.
talking about certain things. The 1 minute clip for today is coming up in a little while. So, but yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of us. And if you ever want to explore opportunities in terms of how we work with couples and how we serve
Yeah.
couples, then just click the links in the bio. What I'll do is give you a link the easy way. I'll give
Love
you
it.
a link that goes to all the links. That
Love
way
it.
people can just pick and choose how they want to connect with us.
Love it. So if you guys want to talk about sex, you guys want to talk about relationships, you want to talk about any of this kind of stuff, go check out Oliver. And what you it's clear you're gonna get genuine, but here's the thing: you're gonna get better sex, guys.
You're gonna get
You're
better
gonna get
sex.
better sex.
I listen. I promise you.
If you want better sex,
You
yeah, go ahead. Give this promise.
if you don't mind, I'm gonna plug something right now
Yeah, hit
that
it.
is significant to this conversation. I had the privilege. My wife and I had the privilege of being one of 23 speakers
Yeah.
for a sex seminar.
Okay.
Every one of the 23 speakers is addressing some area of the sexual experience.
Yeah.
Our talk was on what we talked about, actually, was
Yeah.
on the helping the low drive spouse.
Right.
So here's the thing. If you click that link that you're going to see, you'll see an opportunity, and it's mind-blowing for me why they are doing this so inexpensive, but you can get all 23 talks for less than $1 each.
Wow.
And it's not fluff, Neil. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like there are
Yeah.
some heavy hitters in that lineup.
Yeah.
Sex therapists, psychotherapists, coaches. It's crazy.
Come
So
on,
you
guys.
want you want
25 bucks for
you want to
better
jumpstart,
sex.
yeah, you want to jumpstart your sex life. I highly recommend that. Highly recommend it. And I'm not saying that because I'm on it. I'm
Yeah.
saying that
Yeah.
because of some of the other people that are on it. There are people on it that I look up to.
Yeah.
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 So
What
it's phenomenal.
here's what I'd say. If you're listening, if you're watching right now, if your sex life is not if your sex life can get any better, than it is right now. If it can get any better, if that possibility is there, then go over and go check out Oliver, go check out his stuff, pay the $25, go check out all of that stuff. And then you've got that in your tool belt, add that to your wealth and have better sex.
Absolutely.
Oliver, thank you so much for coming on the show today, talking sex, and look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Leadership to Wealth Nation. Love you guys. We're out of here. We'll see you guys next time.